We were watching TV the afternoon after the storm and thought, well, you know, New Orleans has been spared. And, you know, everybody growing up, all the old timers here growing up would talk about this perfect storm situation that you hope it never comes because New Orleans would never be spared. And this is, you know, kind of what happened. The levees broke and we saw, you know, pictures of this happening, and I get a phone call from someone at LSU and said, you better get over to the field house. It's going to be all hands on deck. They're evacuating New Orleans. They're evacuating as many people as they can get out of the danger zones, and they're bringing them to the field house and they're bringing them to the PMAC. And if you want to have anything left of your facility, you better get over there and be a part of what's happening. So with that, you know, I made a couple of phone calls, called my daughters, and because one of them was a manager with me at the time and the other one was on the soccer team. And the one that was my manager came with me out here, and it was, the sight was unbelievable to see helicopters landing on our track field. It was just the sound of sirens and ambulances and helicopters coming in, and to see the field house begin to fill up. We had evacuees there already, but were people that evacuated here for a safe place to be. But what began to happen was you were getting people that were arriving with wet clothes. There was no bedding. The level of preparation it was a scale of 1 to 10, and we had a 10 emergency. The level of preparation was about a 3 because they weren't preparing for the number of people, the food service, docks, the company that was going to supply the laundry and the towels and sheets. None of those things, none of that mechanism had started working. So we get to the field house, and the people from health and hospitals and all the volunteers were there. It was a kind of a desperate time. And they said, we need sheets, we need towels, we need bedding, we need clothing. These people, we have nothing. And I made a couple of phone calls, and the next thing to some people that I knew in junior league. And the next thing I know, people were flooding in with sheets and towels and things to help service the situation that we had. But it wasn't just what we were doing here. Tommy Moffitt, Greg Stringfellow, all the people in the equipment room, they were, you know, pouring in with sweatsuits and t-shirts. And Tommy Moffitt made a phone call to, I think, his brother in Tennessee, and the next thing we know, there's a semi with food and clothing and more things than you could imagine that we needed. At the field house, things were flooding into the field house, and they were sending supplies in, but they were sending, you know, cases and cases of baby stuff, and we had very few babies there. So we would have people show up at the back door that were running a shelter in Opelousas or a shelter in Bogalusa or shelter, you know, can you help us, can you help us? And so we kind of had this back door operation, that things that were coming in that we couldn't use, we were helping to supply other agencies. And then we had these tables of clothing and sheets and towels. In the athletic department, we were using our machines to wash sheets and towels so that the bedding would be clean. Our student athletes were volunteering throughout the day and night. And you know, after about 4 days of this, and we're trying to maintain the semblance of we are a university, and you know, we've got to start classes, and we've got to get our kids in practice, we've got to get our kids out of this survival mode and get them into something that would resemble normal college life. And I went into the field house one night, and I saw Kelly Lee and Taryn Martin-Jack, 2 of my student athletes, putting food into a feeding tube, one of the patients over there. And at that point, I realized that enough is enough. You know, so we began to try to pull our student athletes and rely more on the volunteer services for the agencies that are designed to do this kind of work. But you know, it was about a week before we could put curtains and cordon off sections of the gymnastics room so that we could try to have practice. And you know, the kids show up, some of my student athletes, April Burkholder shows up for practice one afternoon, and she stopped at the front door with by a National Guardsman with an automatic rifle. I'm like, okay, nothing about this is normal, you know. So I think the chancellor and the athletic director, and it was Chancellor O'Keefe and Skip Bertman, they did just a tremendous job of settling the situation down, settling this campus down, and getting it back to the educational institution that it is. But I tell you, I just can't even imagine what would have happened to all those refugees. And you know, you hate to use that term, but that's what it felt like. It was this giant exodus of people, and they were being sent from here to all over the country. And I took one tour one afternoon of what was happening in the PMAC, and the triage and the medical service that was set up in the PMAC was mind-boggling. And the field house was more of like a nursing home caretaker environment, where over in the PMAC they were actually saving people's lives. And the doctors and the nurses, and you know what was going on this campus was, I hope we never ever have to deal with something like that again. And you know, your life experiences kind of prepare you for the next thing that you're going to have down the road. But what my family experienced in Hurricane Betsy and the community coming together was a life experience. But what New Orleans and Jefferson Parish and St. Bernard, what those people experienced in Katrina, and what the Baton Rouge community and the LSU community was able to do to facilitate their healing and help them at least move to a better place, you know, it was a 10. It was a 10 in performance, because it was an absolute heart-wrenching experience to see those people come in with nothing. We had people that we were bringing in that they had rescued from under and on top of bridges. We had people that had been living under bridges that we brought to a better place. So it was hard to imagine. So, you know, hopefully from this, our city, our state was able to move forward and help some of these people, you know, go to better places. And you know, people lost homes, and the stories that we told, and just to sit and listen to people tell their stories. And you know, I remember people like this one lady, she called herself Bobcat. You know, just the people, I still have their phone numbers in my phone, because I don't want to erase that memory. And you know, for years, 2 or 3 years after, we continued to look for people, and I'd given people my phone number, and I'd have them call me and just say, you know, I don't know if you remember me, but I met you at the field house, and I have your phone number, and I just want to say thanks. And you know, that's kind of enough. The tennis team came in one day, the entire group of kids came in, and they were charged with putting bunks together, you know, making bunks. And I don't think there was a team on this campus, a coach whose team wasn't charged or asked to do something that they didn't go over and beyond what they were asked to do.